Player versus player, or PvP as it's commonly abbreviated, has changed a lot in New World over the years that I've been playing it. During the original alpha of the game, PvP was effectively New World. You'd gather materials, build a base, attack other people to get their materials, and then take them back to your base to make it stronger. Kinda like a 16th century Rust. Back in those early days, the game had a complex but elegant system of blocking, dodging, positioning, and CC chains, and every attack had a visible impact and stagger on your opponent. It was very much possible to outplay people, effectively taking no damage provided you just made the right moves. Now, over time, Amazon have simplified this combat system, making mistakes in combat less punishing. And with New World Aeternum, they've even implemented this aim lock system, where you can basically just lock onto an enemy, making it so that it's very difficult to miss your ranged and melee attacks, effectively removing another element of skill from combat, in my opinion. Now, whilst I do appear to be talking about all this quite negatively, I do still very much enjoy PvP in New World. I think there is just a subtle nuance to it, and it's very unique in the way that it plays. Like most other MMOs, they just don't have the same combat system, and especially how it plays in PvP. There is just something unique to it. And what I want to do in this video is introduce you guys, if you've never seen New World's PvP before, or if you're a returning player and haven't experienced it for a long time, bring you guys up to speed on what's changed, the different PvP game modes you can engage in, why you might want to consider engaging in New World's PvP, and just give you guys some general tips and pointers on how to perform better and get the most out of the game's PvP systems. So let's first kick things off by answering the question, why should you PvP in New World Aeternum? Well, outside of the obvious answer of fun, PvP is fairly rewarding in this game, and you can earn gold, consumables, items, and more. By flagging up for open world PvP, you earn additional experience and gain a luck buff when it comes to gathering, looting enemies, and chests. You can flag up by holding up on the D-pad and then pressing L2 or pressing U on the keyboard. As a heads up though, you will need to be part of a faction to do this. Whilst you're flagged for PvP, you'll start earning Azoth Salt. This is a currency you can spend on the PvP rewards track. It's likely the first time you look at this menu, you'll see a bunch of question marks on the 9 boxes underneath each checkpoint. In order to get rewards to pop up in these question mark boxes, you'll need to earn PvP experience. This can be done by completing PvP faction missions, killing other players in the open world, or engaging in any of New World Aeternum's PvP game modes. The rewards you'll see on this track scale to your level, and get better the higher you climb in rank, which is done by completing tracks, basically earning 10,000 PvP experience or more. It's important to know that your rank can't go down if you lose or die in PvP. It's simply just a progression system, which continues to climb the more experience you earn, kind of like your character's level. Whether you're interested in PvP or not, it would still greatly benefit your character to level up this PvP rewards track, as it can be an amazing source of gypsum, gold, weapons, armor, jewelry, and most importantly, artifacts. Artifacts are unique, powerful, max level items, and 10 of them can only be obtained from the PvP rewards track. At time of recording, you can start seeing artifacts from track 29 onwards, although it won't be till track 100 plus where they start to appear more regularly. Artifacts only appear on checkpoint 3, and they always cost 50,000 Azoth Salt. Now that we understand the importance of the PvP rewards track, let's start talking about different ways you can engage in PvP and earn experience in order to start moving through those tracks. The first form of PvP you can engage in is called a duel. These are unlocked at level 10 and can be set up as a one-on-one or group versus group fight. Duels do not earn you any PvP experience or Azoth Salt, but they are a great way to hone your skills and are often used for unofficial tournaments hosted by various New World community members and creators. On most servers, the area outside of Windsward's North Gate is usually populated by would-be duelers and is a great place to hang out if you want to practice small-scale or one-on-one PvP. The next PvP activity you'll be able to engage in happens from level 17 onwards via joining a faction. After you choose the Marauders, Syndicate, or Covenant, you'll be able to flag up for PvP and attack players from opposing factions, provided they are also flagged for PvP and they're outside of a settlement or fast travel shrine. You can tell whether you can attack another player or not based on whether they have the red cross swords behind their faction icon. If Those swords are present, they're hostile, you can attack them. Whilst you're PvP flagged, there are several other PvP activities that become available to you. The first one is PvP faction missions. These can be picked up from your faction representative in any settlement, and will usually have you run from A to B, stand in a zone for a certain period of time, or loot a certain number of chests. So they're not actually PvP activities, you are just simply flagged for PvP whilst you do the quests. There's also a PvP faction mission, which will ask you to take control of that settlement's fort, which can be done regardless of having the mission or not. So even if you don't have the mission, you still can take over the fort. To take control of a fort, all you need to do is pass through the doors whilst you're PvP flagged, and stand on the flag in the center. After standing here for roughly 10 minutes, it will become locked to whatever faction you are part of for the next hour, and you'll get a big chunk of PvP experience and Azoth Salt. On the first few days of the new servers that are coming with New World Aeternum, it's possible that some of these forts will be unowned, and as a result, you will not be able to flip it into your faction's control until a company purchases that settlement. And this is done by interacting with the little Azoth Fissure. It's located in the ground within the fort, and you need to spend 100,000 gold to take over the territory and have it become your company's. Now, once you take control of a fort, every player that is of the same faction on your server will receive a buff, and the buff depends on the fort. For example, on this server right now, Monarch's Bluff is currently owned by the Syndicate, and that means every Syndicate member on this server is getting a global experience boost of 5%, so their combat, trade skill, weapon mastery, and territory standing, it's all coming in 5% faster. If we take a look at Ebonscale, Ebonscale is currently owned by the Covenant. Global faction store discount, so everything in the faction store is 5% cheaper. You guys kind of get the idea, we don't need to keep going over this, but basically you can see this fort over here is in contention right now, so it's currently owned by the Syndicate, but either the Marauders or the Covenant are going to be there. Once the Marauders or Covenant flip it to their faction's control, then they will all get the global consumable bonus. Well, I say we'll all get it. The Marauders or the Covenant will get the 10% global consume, so there's a 10% chance that potions won't be consumed when they drink them. Taking over forts and running PvP missions all fall under two different categories: influence races and general open world PvP. Open world PvP doesn't really need to have an objective. There are some players who will run around flagged simply for the opportunity to fight other players. When you kill another player in the open world, you'll receive weapon mastery, PvP experience, and Azoth Salt. Sometimes the player you kill will also drop a bag of loot. The stuff in this bag are not items from the player, but just random loot the game generates for PvP kills. Often, the gear from player kills can be pretty good, especially in the early weeks of a new server going up. Flagging up is one of the most straightforward ways to engage in PvP and can be done solo or in a group. Any members of your faction who are also PvP flagged can be considered friendly, and you'll be able to heal or receive heals from them. There aren't really any penalties for dying in open world PvP. As I mentioned, the loot that players drop is not actually stuff from their inventory, it's just auto-generated. And the same goes for you. If you were to drop loot, it wouldn't actually be stuff that's on your character. One thing to be aware of though, if you die whilst you have an active PvP mission, it will be reset, and you will need to complete the objectives again. This also happens if you fast travel whilst having any PvP missions active. The next type of PvP you'll be able to engage in happens from level 20 onwards and is a bit more straightforward than open world PvP. It's called 3v3 Arena, and it's effectively just a battle to the death. The first team that kills the other team wins the round, and you need to win 3 rounds to win the game. This game mode can be queued for solo or in a group of up to 3, and the matchmaking system will endeavor to match you up against other solos or groups and place an equal number of healers on either team's side. 3v3 Arena also has level brackets, starting from 20 to 29, then 30 to 39, going all the way up to level 65. At time of recording, there are 2 different maps which rotate every fortnight, though the objective remains the same regardless of which map you're playing on. At the end of a 3v3 Arena match, you'll receive PvP experience and Azoth Salt, and also a box of Arena Warriors spoils, which contains a weapon, piece of armor, or jewelry. The loot from these boxes is usually pretty underwhelming in my experience, and you can only get 2 of these boxes a day, but nonetheless, something is better than nothing, I guess. Another important mechanic to know about 3v3 Arena is the fire circle. You'll see a timer in the middle of the screen. Once this timer gets to 0 seconds, there's going to be a ring of fire that slowly shrinks in on the center. Standing in the fire will do a lot of damage to you and reduce all of your incoming healing to 0, so you cannot heal while you're in the fire. This is basically to make sure that matches don't go infinitely long if there's multiple healers on either side. One thing that's unique about 3v3 Arena compared to every other type of PvP in New World Aeternum is that you have unlimited consumables. Any food, honing stones, or potions you have in your inventory will be given an infinite symbol, and consuming them won't actually reduce the number of stacks you had prior to entering into 3v3 Arena. You can take advantage of this by just buying one of each type of the most powerful consumable and then using them just for 3v3 Arena, as again, they won't be consumed, but you still get the buff or the potion effect, whatever it is. My recommendation is to enter 3v3 Arena with the following consumables in your inventory at the highest tier you can use for your level. You will want to have one health potion, and again, whichever is the best for your level, so that's weak, common, strong, powerful, or infused. You'll also want to have at least one regeneration potion, again, same tiers, common, strong, powerful, infused. Make sure you also have a honing stone, weak, common, strong, and powerful are the different names for these honing stones. These give you a damage boost, basically, so you can use it in your inventory. Gives you a weapon damage boost for a certain period of time. Attribute food is also something I would recommend you have and consume at the beginning of a 3v3 arena round. Right now, I'm looking at strength food, so I have roasted new fish, banana bread, clam chowder, supreme omelet, and pork chops. So we'll take a look at the supreme omelet. This can be used from level 15 onwards, as we go to the clam chowder, which gives strength by 30. This can be used from level 35 onwards. So again, whatever's the best for your level. There are a ton of different attribute foods, so whichever one's most relevant for your class. I'm looking at strength in particular, but we'll put a link to New World Database in the description down below. You'll have a link to all the names of the attribute foods there, so you can find the best one for your class or whatever weapons you're using. You'll also want to make sure that you have a health recovery food. This can be hearty meal, satisfying meal, light meal, travel ration, light ration, old hardtack. When you pop these, they give you a sort of 1 hour or 40-minute buff, but they also give you a short-term buff as well. So you recover 220 health per second for 20 seconds, but it stops when damage is taken. So you can consume some of this food while you're hiding behind a rock or whatever. As soon as you take damage, the recovery will stop. But again, you can use this as a sort of way to regenerate health as well. So having one of these in your inventory for the infinite stack that you'll get, definitely worth it. Oak Flesh Bomb is also another great consumable to have for 3v3 Arena, again, because you get an infinite stack. They're quite expensive, each individual one, but the Oak Flesh Bomb, again, comes in the different tiers from common all the way up to powerful. This gives you a big increase in physical damage absorption. So anybody who's hitting you with physical weapons or like bullets or arrows, they're just going to do less damage for a certain period of time. This could be very good to pop just as you're getting engaged on or you're about to engage in combat. And then there's another equivalent for that called Gemstone Dust. Again, this comes in the same different tiers, so it depends what level you are, but this is for elemental damage. So if you're going against Fire Staffs or Ice Gauntlets, popping this just before you get into the thick of combat is great for 3v3 Arena as well. And then finally, we just got the Mana Potion. This isn't going to apply to everybody, but if you're playing with a Life Staff or a Fire Staff or some sort of magical weapon, then having at least one Mana Potion in your inventory, also definitely recommend that as well. Finally, once you hit level 61 and onwards, you'll be able to use the Regeneration Serum. This is really, really good. Although it's expensive, you don't want to be knocking these back willy-nilly. Again, because one effectively becomes an infinite amount in 3v3 Arena. This restores health and stamina and mana every second. It's a really, really good potion. Having one of these in 3v3 Arena, it's a game changer. Absolutely make sure you have one of these from level 61 onwards. One final thing about 3v3 Arena, at the end of the game, there's a small chance you'll receive an additional box of loot called the Formidable Warriors Cache. You can only receive one of these a week, and they come from completing games of 3v3 Arena or Outpost Rush. They can potentially contain 725 gear score, armor, and jewelry, so I'd recommend not opening these boxes until you get to level 65. Now, whether the loot inside the boxes is determined at time of opening or at time of acquisition, I'm not really sure yet. So I will update you guys in the comments down below, but I would say definitely hold on to these boxes just in case, even if it does give you a low gear score like item for the time that you earn the box, it's worth it in case it does, because you can only get one a week. 725 gear score is kind of hard to come by, so if you do get lucky enough to receive one of these in the first week or two of the server coming up, hold on to them until you get to level 65. After 3v3 Arena, the next form of PvP you can engage in is either going to be Outpost Rush or Influence Races, and it comes down to how fast you level up versus how fast companies on your server can claim territories. Assuming you take more than a couple days to hit level 60, which is when Outpost Rush unlocks, we'll first cover influence races. Once a company claims a territory, they'll only have a few days before an influence race starts for that territory. This is a 45-minute open-world PvP event where companies and factions can get together and generate influence in that area. They do this by taking control of the fort and the 3 watchtowers that are within the territory. On top of this, any PvP faction missions they complete during the race will generate additional influence, which is amplified by the amount of watchtowers they control along with the fort. If your faction wins the race, which basically means they push the most out of the 2 attacking factions, and your company is able to contribute 10% or more influence, and you have at least 50 company members, you'll be given the ability to declare war on that territory. And if you win that war, your company will become the new owners of said territory. Now, we'll cover the specifics of war and territory ownership later in this video, but you might be thinking, oh, so influence races are just an event for large groups and companies to take part in. The answer is yes, but also no. You can take part as a solo player or a small group simply just for the open world PvP experience. Killing other players will give the usual rewards normal open world PvP gives, but at the end of the race, you'll receive additional rewards based on your contribution, aka how much influence you generated, and how well your faction did. These rewards include PvP XP, Azoth Salt, faction rep, faction tokens, and a box of loot named Sovereign Influence. The loot in this box varies depending on if your faction wins the race or not. Now, I didn't realize this until time of recording, but apparently you do need to be at least level 25 to receive one of these Sovereign boxes at the end of an influence race. Whilst it is possible for the defenders to have a defensive victory, whichever attacking faction generated the most influence during the race will still be given the opportunity to declare war, provided a company within that faction pushed at least 10% and they have at least 50 company members. My understanding is that if multiple companies push more than 10% influence, the war will be given at random to any one of the bidders, although the higher the influence push of a particular company, the more likely it is to win the bid. Now, if you're like, your head's exploding at this point, like Baggins, I have no, what is an influence race? Basically, there's a time on the server, 45 minutes, just go out, do PvP missions, hold on to areas on the map, and if your company like does really well, then you might have a chance to declare war. It's a good idea to coordinate with other people in your same faction using faction chat. At its simplest form, you can just view it as a time where there's going to be a lot of people who are PvP flagged in the area, and you can go and kill them if you want. Although it is going to be large groups, especially when companies want to try and get that war declaration. Since we just talked about influence races and how they set up for the ability to trigger a war, I guess it now makes sense to talk about that PvP game mode. Wars are an instanced 50 versus 50 battleground where you have a defending company in the fort and an attacking company at the war camp. This battleground area is identical to the one you can visit anytime in the open world, but as we mentioned earlier, by being instanced, you'll be in a separate layer of the map from the rest of the people on the server whilst the war happens. Now, for the attackers to win a war, they'll first need to take control of points A, B, and C, which is done by occupying these zones with more attackers than defenders, causing the zone to tick in their favor. Once the zone fully ticks up, it is then owned by the attackers and cannot be reclaimed by the defenders. These zones can also be used as respawn points for attackers once they control them. After taking A, B, and C, the attackers will then need to break through the defending fort's gates and occupy the zone within the center of the fort. Just like with A, B, and C, if the attackers have more players on the point than the defenders, it will tick in their favor, and if the circle fully completes, the attackers win the war and they claim the territory. Defenders win by default if the attackers aren't successful in claiming this fort zone within the 30 minutes that the war lasts. One thing that sets war aside from every other PvP game mode in New World Aeternum is that you need to field a roster of players prior to starting the war. Once a war declaration is made, players will be able to sign up for attack or defense depending on their faction. Leaders from the attacking and defending companies will then be able to slot these signups into groups for a total of 50 players each side. For attackers, 25 of these 50 players will need to be from the attacking company, the one who declared the war. The remaining 25 can be mercenaries, basically any other player on the server that is not in the same faction as the defenders. This mercenary system for defenders is more extreme, as they will need to have a minimum of 40 players from their company in the roster. Only 10 can be non-company members or mercenaries. One problem New World has faced in the past is one company taking control of all of the territories on the map, effectively dominating the server. The idea behind the mercenary system is that if a company does control multiple territories, they'll need to field 40 defenders for each war, but a company can only have a maximum of 100 members, and wars happen at the same time if they're controlled by the same company. So in theory, one company will not be able to hold more than 2 territories at a time without being at a severe disadvantage in terms of defending numbers. Now in reality, war is still only engaged in by a small percentage of New World's population. It's a game mode for the most devout and hardcore of PvPers, as controlling a territory requires careful planning, setting up of rosters, shot calling, and sometimes even VOD reviews, where players record footage of their war performance and play it back to other company members post-war for critique and improvement. If you get the opportunity to take part in a war, I would highly recommend it though. It is a very unique experience in New World Aeternum, and the 50 versus 50 game mode with the structure and the planning and the shot calling, it is a special thing. But just want to let you guys know that it is limited in in who gets to take part in it. This is probably the most exclusive PvP game mode within New World Aeternum. Now, since I mentioned the rewards for every other type of PvP so far, I feel like I should mention that upon completion of a war, both attackers and defenders will receive PvP XP, Azoth Salt, and a box of loot known as War Spoils. War Spoils, if I'm not mistaken, contain armor, weapons, jewelry, the sort of standard stuff you get from most other boxes. The real reason for taking part in a war, though, is control of the territory. The company that owns the territory will receive a cut of all tax that server generates paid directly into their company treasury. Certain territories get a bigger cut than others, like Eden Grove I think is 15%, Windsward and Everfall 10%, Weaver Sven 5%, maybe some citation needed on those numbers. And the more crafting stations and fort upgrades the territory performs, the higher their cut is as well. So defenders of a territory will definitely want to make sure they upgrade their fort gates and war horns especially. Not only will they get more tax revenue, but it also help them defend in the war. Other than the Cursed Mists, which we'll cover next, Outpost Rush is one of the last PvP game modes you'll unlock and is available to queue from level 60 onwards. Like with 3v3 Arena, this game mode is cross-server, has matchmaking, team balance, and can be queued for any time of the day. Outpost Rush is a 20 versus 20 battleground on a separate island from the rest of the map. To win the game, your team will need to get to 1,000 points. Points are awarded for killing members of the enemy team and for controlling any of the 3 objectives on the map: Star, Sun, and Moon. Taking control of the objectives is similar to how it is in Forts and War, where you need to place people within the capture circle and keep them there for a long enough time to have it flip into control by your team. One unique factor with Outpost Rush is it also features elements of PvE, player versus environment. You can gather materials like wood, ore, and hide, and use them to reinforce the doors to the objectives that you own. You can even construct turrets and a command post within the base, giving everyone on your team a damage boost whilst it remains active. Also, every 10 minutes, a boss spawns on the west side of the island named Baroness Hain. Whichever team gets the killing blow on this boss locks the other team's score for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So getting a kill on this thing can be huge for your team's chances at success in Outpost Rush. Like in War, there are also special consumables you can purchase from armory stores located at each point your team owns along with your initial spawn area. These consumables are purchased with Azoth Essence, which you loot from killing AI enemies within the Outpost Rush island. Finally, you can summon minions in Outpost Rush. By owning a ghost, bear, or brute token, you can summon the respective creature at a summoning stone. There are 2 of these located outside of either entrance for Star, Sun, and Moon. The bear token can be purchased at the armory or drops from the Alpha Wolf. The ghost token drops from killing Ugg or Doug. I might need some citation needed on what he's called. And the brute token can only be earned once every 5 minutes. On the east side of the map, a corrupted portal spawns minions for the portal event. Killing these minions will allow you to interact with the corrupted portal. Fully channeling the interaction will give you a brute token. These tokens can be used both defensively and offensively. If you summon them outside of a point that your team doesn't own, the creature will attack the opponent's gate, if they have any, and any hostile players outside of the objective. At time of recording, they will not actually enter into the point though. They only patrol in a small radius around the summoning stone you place them at. In terms of rewards, Outpost Rush is one of the best in my opinion. Provided you can get your personal score to 3,000 or more before the end of the game, you'll get a decent chunk of PvP experience, Azoth Salt, gold, faction tokens, faction rep, dark matter, gypsum, and an Outpost Rush cache. This cache gives you more items than 3v3 Arena, and even has a chance to give you an artifact unique to the cache's loot pool, the Tumbler Feet Wraps, and Koya's Knee Guards. So for those of you wanting to take a more casual approach to PvP in New World Aeternum, Outpost Rush is likely the game mode for you. Because it has some PvE related activities and features 20 players on either side, if you're not the most competent PvPer, it won't spell disaster for your team. You can still contribute by building up your team's base and farming Azoth Essence to buy consumables, and then you can put those consumables in your team's storage shed, allowing other friendlies to withdraw and use them. As I mentioned in the 3v3 Arena section, Outpost Rush also has a chance to give you a formidable Warriors cache after the game completes. Again, this can only be earned weekly. The advantage of playing Outpost Rush versus Arena for this box though, is that Outpost Rush has a 5% chance to give you the reward, whereas Arena is only 2.5%. So although Outpost Rush games may take longer to play out, the chances of receiving the box is doubled. The final PvP type we're going to talk about in this video is also one that has been most recently added to the game. The Cursed Mists are a PvP zone located in the bottom left of Cutlass Keys. This is a special area of the map where after you move past the giant stone structures projecting a yellow mist stuff, you will be given a 30-second timer and then be flagged for PvP. Unlike with the normal PvP flag rules used for open world and influence races, this system prevents you from being in a party. In the Cursed Mists, anyone can attack anyone else, regardless of whether they're in the same faction or even the same company. It is a free-for-all zone. There's also 3 special types of resource you can earn here. The first is the Gold Curse Coconut. This can be looted once a week from Cursed Hordes, and is a powerful crafting material used in the upgrading of artifacts and certain named items, and can also be used to purchase boxes containing 725 gear score legendary items. The second resource is Cursed Doubloons. These are dropped from various AI located in the Cursed Mists, and can also be looted from chests around the area. The final resource is all of the other cursed materials located in the Mists. You'll find an abundance of gold, platinum, orichalcum, mithril, ironwood, runewood, basically all of the high-end gatherable materials in New World Aeternum. Now the catch with these cursed resources is that you need to cleanse them in order to be able to use them. Cleansing is done via leaving the zone again, but you have to do this on foot or on mount. So you need to physically pass by the stone structure yellow fog gate thing in order to have the items cleansed. Dying at any time within the Cursed Mist will cause you to drop half of your cursed materials on the ground, potentially then being looted by another player. This obviously works in reverse though. You can attack and kill other players and loot half of any cursed materials they have on them. If at any point you fast travel out of the mists, you will simply lose half of your cursed materials, and the other half will just cleanse themselves after you fast travel. The Gold Curse Coconut is exempt from all these rules though. Once you loot one of those, it's permanently in your inventory until you use it. Like with normal open world PvP, you'll earn PvP experience, Azoth Salt, and potentially be able to loot randomly generated items when killing other players in the mists, on top of stealing half of their cursed resources. When doubloons are in a non-cursed form, just known as Mystic Doubloons, they can be spent at the Well of Fortune, which is located in the Cutlass Keys settlement. The well gives players access to max gear score items, artifacts, and other consumables. It's worth noting that you can earn doubloons without needing to enter the PvP mists. There are repeatable daily quests that give doubloons, along with a key you can purchase from the well. The key unlocks a treasure chest outside of the mists, which gives 500 doubloons. This key, however, can only be purchased once a week. Also, most chests in the non-mists part of Cutlass Keys do have a chance to give you a small amount of doubloons. When it comes to the curse miss, I definitely think it's worth venturing in to get that gold curse coconut. The advantage of the miss over something like open world PvP is in that, in theory, if you don't have friends to play with, you won't be at a disadvantage. Most other forms of PvP allow you to play in a group, and it gives you advantages from playing in a group. This, in theory, is strictly for solos, just like with 1v1 duels. However, whether everybody's gonna strictly adhere to the rules and not sort of unofficially team up, that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, I would very much recommend dipping into the mists at least once a week to go loot that cursed horde. It's worth knowing that anybody can damage you and interrupt you while you're looting the cursed horde. So sometimes you might want to just try and gank somebody, you know, just wait, lie and wait until somebody's just about to finish looting the chest, and then quickly go for the kill and then finish looting the chest. It's an interesting mechanic the way they have it set up over there. Now for this next section of the video, what I wanted to do was outline some builds, strategies, and general tips and tricks to help you with the different PvP game modes within New World Aeternum. But knowing how many different game modes there are and how extensive and nuanced PvP in New World can be, I feel like it would add easily another 30 minutes to this video. And I've seen a bunch of you guys in the comments and even over on Reddit saying that the videos are quite long here on the channel. So in order to condense things down, but still give you guys some good value and knowledge from this video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to outsource to a bunch of other content creators who make informational videos regarding PvP with New World and New World Aeternum. So the first channel or series I want to make you guys aware of, if you're not already aware of it, is Death Metal. He has a series called The Art of War, and it's basically a playlist talking about so many different concepts when it comes to wars in New World Aeternum, from rosters to player positions to flanking to respawns, consumables, I mean everything. He even has like VOD reviews breaking down different wars. It is a really, really good playlist to check out. Some of the videos are a little bit dated. They're from like a year or two ago, and whether Death Metal plans to continue this series in New World Aeternum, I don't know yet, but would strongly recommend for any of you interested in war and the specifics that you want to get good so you can compete against other people who've been doing it for a long time. This is a very valuable series to watch, so I'll put a link to that in the description down below. I also recently came across these videos from Naomi. It's again more specifics, more of the technical details when it comes to war and groups and controlling the points. Again, a lot of this stuff is really high level, but I think if you do want to be on that competitive state for war, some of these resources super valuable. The amount of time and effort that are put into these videos, it's just really well done. So also link to Naomi with her video on quad DPS fundamentals for season 5 and beyond. So this is a fairly recent video in terms of New World War information. Next up, we have content creator Trick, a good friend of mine. Trick is a avid PvPer, spends a lot of time in Outpost Rush and also conjuring up weird builds. The Leeching Bunny is a build that I feel like has transcended and become something that is known across New World on PC. I believe Trick was one of the original innovators for the build. He also runs a website called New World Champ where you can check out PvP builds. So highly recommend checking out Trick for his builds and knowledge on PvP. And again, there'll be a link to his channel in the description down below. Another New World PvP content creator that I enjoy watching is Micro. Micro has some very tactical, detailed breakdowns of weapon stats and scaling and all of the sort of nuances and behind the scene things in New World Aeternum that are no way immediately obvious when you're playing the game. So if you like spreadsheets and maths and numbers, and also quite a lot of tier lists and interactions with the PvP community, I think Micro's videos are very valuable to watch. And again, links to his channel in the description down below. That Cousin is a content creator that I would say is popular for meme builds, but they're also like really fun to play as well. I've seen a bunch of builds that Cousin uses in his videos, and then I go and play them in game. And of course, they never work out as well as he's able to play them. But if you're looking for some builds that are a bit outside of the box and for some more entertaining montages of unusual weapon combinations in Outpost Rush 3v3 Arena and Open World PvP, check out his channel. He's got a lot of crazy stuff over there. And finally, I gotta give some love to your boy Willie. He is a content creator that's been in New World since the beginning, basically. He is often shoutcasting and commentating on PvP activities. Right now, it looks like he's commentating over an influence race and wars. Great guy to interact with, very friendly, lots of energy. So again, another great PvP content creator who is very active in the war scene. If you have more questions around that, highly recommend checking out Willie's channel. Again, link in the description down below. Now, obviously, this was by no means an exhaustive list of all PvP content creators in New World. There are so many great individuals out there making good content. If you guys want to shout them out in the comments down below, by all means, I highly recommend it. I think the PvP scene in New World is something that it has a very strong bond with each other. At times it can be a little bit toxic, but so can PvP in every game, and honestly, so can many other aspects of New World. It's not exclusively the PvP scene, but they're also a really lovely bunch once you get to know them. So yeah, check the comments down below. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of wisdom down there as well. But with that being said, I wanted to try and keep this video on the shorter end, under the hopefully 40-minute mark. So if you guys enjoyed this one, consider leaving a like. If you want more New World information, not even just specifically PvP, but just everything in general, check out the stream. We're going to be streaming New World Aeternum every day from the 15th of October onwards, probably for like the next 3 weeks straight. So yeah, I think we're going to have Twitch drops. We'll have more information. We will hopefully be taking part in some wars, influence races, and all that good stuff. So if you want to see it, again, twitch.tv/BagginsTV. Subscribe for more New World Aeternum content, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.